The 710, that's got the right lane blocked off by a couple big rigs. You're going to slow down back at Atlantic Avenue. Cranston San Fe Street, boot to the shoulder, 605 south on a Telegraph. Expect delays still from Beverly Boulevard.
If your company needs to spring into efficient hiring, then check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers extend their winning streak to 4 with a 2-point victory at Utah in overtime. First win for the Lakers in Utah since 2019. The Lakers and Clippers jump it up tonight at Crypto.com. First game for Russell Westbrook against the Lakers since they traded him in February. University of Iowa women's basketball star Caitlin Clark defended Angel Reese, saying the LSU star should not be criticized for her actions in Sunday's championship game. Reese is catching static for taunting Clark near the end of the game with the "you can't see me" hand gesture. 47-year-old Tiger Woods is dropping hints that he's nearing the end of a legendary career. Woods, who has dealt with numerous injuries, is prepping for his 25th Masters this week at Augusta. He's won the Masters 5 times. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room with
Mr. X, hi. I've read some of your speeches, and I honestly believe that a lot of what you have to say is true. And I'm a good person in spite of what my ancestors did. I wanted to ask you, what can a white person like myself, who isn't prejudiced, what can I do to help you and further your cause?
Nothing.
Classic scene from Spike's powerful movie. Denzel got robbed for that one, but we all know that, right? Classic scene there. What can you do to help us? Nothing. He just walks away, just dips. A conversation in this hour. By the way, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Tavis Smiley. A conversation in this hour about representation, identity, and allyship. How non-black fellow citizens can support the black community with New York Times and USA Today bestselling author Austin Channing Brown. I'm sure we'll cover a great deal more than that, but that's where I want to begin this hour. Austin, good to have you back on the program. How are you today?
Oh, thanks so much for having me again.
It's my delight. So you heard that clip. I wanted to start with that clip.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. I think, one of yours too. I think everybody loves. I mean, it's just an amazing film. But and Denzel, of course, just acquitted himself beautifully in that project. But it is a scene. It's a classic scene because it says everything that needs to be said. at least about the way Malcolm at that time viewed allyship.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk. Let's start with that. When you say allyship, unpack what you mean by that in your work as you wrestle with it.
Yeah, allyship is such a squishy term. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle with it, both black and white. Like, what does that mean exactly? And so one of the terms that I love to use is the word accomplice. Because, Tavis, I was I was speaking somewhere and I used that term, and a white woman stood up at the end and she was like, "Can you tell me why you love the word accomplice? Because it sounds kind of, criminal."
Yeah. I can see that.
I said, "That's why."
Yeah.
I said, "That's exactly why." Because it implies that if we are stealing the car together, you also are going to get in trouble right alongside me. You getting arrested, you going to have to face some charges, And I think that version of allyship is what I'm looking for, right? Someone who is in the fight, who is willing to get in trouble, who is the ride or die. And I think that's what we're looking for allyship.
That requires, though, a serious investment. It requires an investment, and I mean an investment that is, it seems to me, not just psychological, but emotional, spiritual. I mean, it requires a serious investment, does it not?
It absolutely does. And I think it also requires realizing that white people, like the white person or the non-black person who thinks of themselves as an ally, is also not free. Right? That's why they're the accomplice. It's not because they want to, quote unquote, help me, right? As said in the clip, right? It's because they realize they need to help themselves, right? The world is broken and we have to fix it. And you're a part of fixing it, but not for me, for us.
Yeah. I suspect there are a lot of people. It's going to be a good hour. I'm just getting started, and I'm excited about it already. I suspect there are a lot of people, Austin, a lot of our white brothers and sisters I'm speaking of now, who in their mind, put another way, in their head and in their heart, see themselves as allies. We'll come back to the question in a moment of whether you in it for yourself or whether you're in it to help me. Those are two different things. I take your point. We won't we'll put a pin in that. We'll get back to that, I promise. Is it about you or is it about me? But there are a lot of people, I suspect, I've met many of them, who, see themselves as allies, and yet they're blinded by something. It could very well be blinded by the fact that it's really about them and not about us. But what do you say to those persons, or put another way, how do we process having persons in our world who at least think they see themselves as being allies with us?
Yeah, warning, danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Yeah.
Because those who are truly allies realize that they're never done. They're never done learning. They're never going to be able to do enough. They're never going to be able to go far enough. They're never, right? That they understand that in the same ways that as Black people, we are still reading all the literature. We're still reading all the data. We're still unpacking our own internalized racism. We're still packing our own emotions and feelings and thoughts. We're still trying to unlearn a lot of things, right? And if we're still doing that as Black people, then as a white person, you must realize, right, that you absolutely still have blind spots and still have things you need to work on. And so I would say that's one of the signs of a good ally. And if they haven't done that, then I would stay away.
Yeah. What do you say to those persons, again, our white brothers and sisters, who think that allyship is defined merely as showing up? That is to say, there are a whole lot of white brothers and sisters who showed up after the murder of George Floyd. They were in the streets marching and protesting with us. Let's go further back than that. A whole lot of white folk. I remind Negroes all the time, you did not elect Barack Obama by yourself. A whole lot of good white folk, voted for Barack Obama. So there are many who feel that they showed up as allies, and that's all they got to do is to vote for the Black guy. They're not actively engaged in social justice work, but they showed up at the rally after the murder of George Floyd. So what I'm probing here is how we help our white brothers and sisters define allyship as more than just showing up, although showing up is a start. It's meaningful, but it ain't a real drill down.
Right. It's exactly what you said. It's a start, right? And a start implies that it's supposed to lead somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And if there's no leading somewhere else, right, then the truth is you still don't get to call yourself an ally, right? Because this is a journey that we're on. It's a lifelong commitment, right? Tavis, you are not like a racial justice. You don't pursue racial justice like 1 year.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Or one election, one murder. Yeah.
One election,
yeah.
Right? That's not a thing. You don't get to call yourself an activist, right? You don't get to say that you're in pursuit of racial justice. You get to say that you did something one time. And so if that's what you want to say, that you did something one time, great.
Yeah.
But be clear that you did something one time and it wasn't the start of a renewed commitment to something larger than yourself.
Yeah, you said that. Your latter comment reminds me of a story that Coretta Scott King once told me. I was honored to be a friend of hers, and her husband, as this audience knows, I regard as the greatest American this country's ever produced. We spent an hour yesterday talking about him on the 55th anniversary yesterday of his assassination. Yes. Mrs. King once told me, he said, Tavis, we were somewhere having dinner, and somebody walked up to our table, recognized her, walked up to our table, said hello to me, said hello to her, and said, Mrs. King, I want you to know I marched with your husband. I marched with your husband. She said, well, thank you. And they went away. And she said, Tavis, if I had a dime for every Negro who has told me that they marched with Martin, I would be independently wealthy. She said, what these Negroes mean is they was on their front porch when Martin walked by, leading a march, or they may have walked with us for like that block. When we were coming past their house. She said, but everybody I meet always wants to tell me how they march. She said, it couldn't have been that many Negroes out there. I was there, and I did not see that many millions of Negroes marching with Martin. But everybody wants to tell me, Mrs. King, I marched with your husband. She said, I just tell them, thank you, sweetie. Thank you, honey. I appreciate that. But it was hilarious. And she Mrs. King had a deadpan. You look at her and you see her in film and on television, you don't think she's funny, but she was hilarious with her deadpan sort of humor. But I'll never forget that comment.
I don't doubt it for a second.
Yeah, you can't be an ally because you showed up for one block or showed up for
Listen, you just did a thing one time, and that's great. I hope you wrote about it in your journal.
Yeah.
But you don't get a title for that.
Yeah, I hear you. Just getting started in this hour as we talk about allyship and a great deal more with our guest, Austin Channing Brown. When she was last on this program, she was on to celebrate, we were celebrating, her New York Times USA Today bestselling book, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. I love that title. I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. Now we're celebrating the new adaptation of that critically acclaimed text. This one's called I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers. Loving myself in a world not made for me. I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers, loving myself in a world not made for me. A great deal more to talk about in this hour. You're listening to Austin Channing Brown on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited black newspaper in the state of California with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
The double steak grilled cheese burrito is back at Taco Bell. And in case you didn't know, it's stacked. Yeah, packed inside it is a double serving of premium grilled marinated steak and a melty 3-cheese layer. Then on top of that, it has a layer of grilled bubbly cheese on the outside. Yeah, the outside. Why? Probably because it refuses to be caged in by the confines of its tortilla walls. Or maybe just to add more cheesy flavor.
Double steak grilled cheese burrito. Get one today, only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only while supplies last. Double estate claim as compared to state quesadilla. Contact store for hours and participation which may.
Lenny went to college and racked up huge debt.
A little bit over $100,000.
For a degree he couldn't use? Now what?
I had a friend that went to my computer career and they talked to me about it.
He was done in just months.
I did do it online.
They even helped him get hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at My Computer Career.
It worked for me, and I know it can work for you.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Los Angeles, get ready for a very exciting Black Music History Festival coming Saturday, April 8th in downtown Los Angeles, Pershing Square, 532 South Olive Street, featuring hip-hop legend Kool Moe Dee, R&B performances by Jane Eugene featuring Loose Ends and Cheryl Cooley of Climax. You will enjoy food vendors, African dance, spoken word, and more. This is a free event, but you must register online through Eventbrite. Brought to you by the City of Los Angeles Recreation and Parks, a Black History Music Festival celebration not to be missed.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed with our guest in this hour, Austin Channing Brown, author of the new book, I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers, Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. We'll interrogate those titles in just a second. There's a whole lot in the title of a book. I've written, 24 books in my own life, interviewed countless authors, and I find myself saying to people all the time, that your title ought to be clear. It ought to be clear what you're going to get in the book. And so there's no doubt what you're going to get in Austin's books, either of these or both of these. And so we'll talk about that as we move through this hour. But we were talking moments ago about this notion of allyship and how some people are in it for the wrong reasons. Somebody once said that many of us oftentimes do the right thing, but we do it for the wrong reason. We do the right thing, we do it for the wrong reason. So I want to interrogate this notion of allyship vis-a-vis those persons who are doing it for the right reason, doing the right thing rather, but for the wrong reason. That is to say, they're not really doing it for us or for the other person, but they're doing it for themselves, to absolve themselves of some feeling of whatever that might be. But talk to me about that, Austin.
Yeah, so there are a lot of white folks who are obsessed with whether or not they're a good person. Not whether or not, they're obsessed with being considered a good person. And we know that because every single time a politician, entertainer, whoever, messes up, when they say the racist thing, what they want people to know is that they're a good person.
Yeah, they always say that.
That's always what's said next, right?
I'm a good person,
right? And so what true allies understand is that they are not. They're not good people, right? But they really want to be. You know? And so when you start with, oh, I understand that I have participated in white privilege, I have furthered Black anti-Black racism, when I have benefited from these systems, I have not interrogated them, when you can begin to list the ways that you have not been a good person, then you're on your way to allyship, because you realize you're not trying to uphold some picture of yourself, right? You are actually trying to create the person that you want to be.
Yeah. Let me push back on that, because I want to pull the best out of you as
of course,
as we move through this hour. So when you said it, I hadn't really thought about it, but when you said it, I started chuckling, obviously, because we've all heard it more times than we can count. You're right. Every time some white person says the wrong thing, they get caught up in it. They come out, they put a statement out, they hit the media if they're well known, and they always say the same thing. That's not who I am. That's not me.
That's right.
I'm a good
That's
person.
right.
In some way, shape, or form, you're going to get that. That's not who I am. That's really not me. I'm a good person. How should we process that when we hear it? And again, just to complicate things a bit more, my grandmother, Big Mom, used to always say to me, baby, a broken clock is right twice a day. So I guess it's possible that you could call me the N-word a couple times and still be a good person. I don't know. But when people say that's not me, that's not who I am, I'm a good person, how do we process those words when we hear them, Austin? How should we process those words?
We got to ask a whole lot of questions. So question one is, how are you defining good? Question two is, good to whom? Question 3 is good by whose standard? Right? Like, we got to ask more questions,
Yeah.
you know, because good is another one of those squishy words, right? It's another squishy word.
Yeah.
And if we don't start defining what you mean by that, right?
Yeah.
But again, I really do believe that any white person who has already decided that they're good, has already decided that they're not racist, has already decided that they don't need work, has already decided that the black people in their lives love them the way they are, right? Any of that, huge red flags.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. What do you? I don't. This is a funny question because I'm putting you in a position unfairly to speak for all the good white people, and you're not even white. but this is worth interrogating for me. What do you think?
Yeah.
Again, not what you know, because I know you don't know. But what do you think?
Right.
What do you think when you hear white folks say I'm a good person? What do you think they mean when they say that in relationship or vis-a-vis black people, given their relationships with the black people in their lives? What do you think they mean when they say, but I'm a good person? I put another way, how does a white person in this country define themselves or press the claim that I am a good person vis-a-vis, again, their relationships with folk with melanin in their skin? What do you think they mean by that?
Yeah. Oh, Tavis, you're going to get me in so much trouble.
Yeah, well,
I
bring it. Hey, you know what? First of all, you're talking to a guy who's perennially in trouble for something. So I would say I feel sorry for you, but I don't. I don't feel sorry for you. I'm always in trouble.
Okay, I'm in the car.
And misery loves company, they say. So come on with me. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Yeah.
I'm not. So I really believe, right, that white people who speak that way about themselves, right, are still living under the guise of white supremacy. And under the guise of white supremacy, you do get to still think of yourself as a good person, right? We know that there were preachers, right, who were baptizing one day and lynching the next. We know there were slave masters who were, enslavers who were doing all kinds of craziness, but then were called upstanding citizens. We know that there were people in the community, in the court system, who were probably considered good people to their families, but were terrorizing black people, right? And so if you're still living under white supremacy, then yeah, you absolutely can. Right? Because under white supremacy, I am inferior. And so you treating me as inferior is not bad or wrong. It is the way that it is.
Yeah.
Right? But by my definition of a good person, you do not meet the requirements.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think what white people mean, I think that's why we have to interrogate. What do you mean by good?
Yeah. I want to circle back to this, in it for the doing the right thing, but for the wrong reason. This are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it for me? Are there questions that our white brothers and sisters need to ask themselves to ascertain whether or not they're in it for the right reasons, whether they're doing it for us or for them? Is there an interrogation they should put themselves through to address that question?
Wow, that's a good question. I think we might have to ask a white person, Tavis.
Yeah, well. Okay, I know a few. I know. Yeah.
Right? I think we might need a little panel.
Yeah.
To start inquiring. How did you get here,
right.
and what were the roadblocks, and how did you get past those roadblocks?
Yeah.
Because, whew,
yeah.
I would imagine it required a lot of interrogation.
Yeah. I wonder whether or not, again, playing devil's advocate here, but I wonder whether or not it's possible that focusing so much on race, so much on racial identity, actually perpetuates the very divisions that we're trying to overcome. I'm not sure I have that view. As a matter of fact, I'm certain I don't. but there are those who do have that point of view. They would argue that because we spend so much time talking about race and about racial identity, that it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. Does that make sense to you?
I sort of understand the logic until you bring it into the real world, right? because I can't think of any argument that I've ever had with anybody, like any division, anything at that level, and not talking about it solved it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't think of any conflict that I've had with anybody.
Yeah.
Now I might have decided to like go in and find my healing, right? So I'm not suggesting, right? But an actual like solution to the conflict, I don't think has ever happened without acknowledging the conflict itself.
Yeah, I was in a conversation the other day with one of our guests, and we were talking about labor unions. We're talking about labor unions, and she was making the point that one of the ways that labor unions have to win in the coming months and years is to get the American people to move beyond this frame of the individual versus the collective. And we had a rich conversation about the individual versus the collective. So here's my question for you now. Yep. I wonder if by framing racism, as we so often do, as an individual issue that can be solved through empathy and personal growth, whether or not we risk ignoring the structural and systemic collective nature of racism. Does that question make sense?
Tavis, I'm about to just cut you all off. Lord have mercy. I think that's absolutely true. I really do believe that we always have to be thinking about both, right? Because we are individuals who are operating in the system, right? And so we have to be thinking about how to interrupt that system, how to tear down that system, how to rebuild that system, so on and so forth, right? But if we only ever think of ourselves as individuals, we don't stand a chance. And I think that's what we mean when we talk about, are you doing this for me, right? Are you doing this to absolve yourself? Or are you doing this because you realize that humanity is broken and you want to participate, right, in finding justice?
Yeah. I fear that we're living in a world where, certainly in America, where we are becoming fellow citizens, becoming more and more nativist with each day. And I think there's if we're becoming more and more nativist, I think I'm right about that, then that makes it harder to find our way into empathy. And obviously we want to make a distinction between sympathy and empathy. Oftentimes the good white folk have a certain bit of sympathy for the present situation of black people, but empathy is something altogether different. My question is whether or not you think it's becoming more and more difficult or easier, I could be wrong, for people who don't look like us to find their way into empathy, not sympathy.
Wow. I wish I could name what the difference is, Tavis, and I can't. But I will say that to me, there seems to be at minimum two different kinds of white people. And one is the kind that is looking at America and thinking something ain't right here, right? These book bans, these like George Floyd, you know, the things my students are going through, like something's not right here, right? And they begin to move toward that, right? They move out of nativism and into collectivism. But there's other folks, other white folks who are like, wait. You trying to take away what now? Right? Equality. I mean, I meant equality for me, not equality for you. You know what I mean? And they move deeper and deeper into nativism. And I think one of the problems that we have is that the people who are moving deeper and deeper into nativism have much more of a platform than those who are moving towards collectivism.
Hold that thought. When we come forward, I want to probe that notion. We're going to talk more about nativism versus collectivism and Austin's read that folk moving in that direction. Well, you heard her. We'll pick up on that very thought when we come forward. We're talking to Austin Channing Brown. You're listening to her right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Island, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Multiple people are dead after a tornado struck 100 miles south of St. Louis, Missouri. The State Highway Patrol says 4 people are confirmed dead in the community of Glen Allen. This comes as millions of Americans are in the path of severe weather expected to impact parts of the central U.S. and Midwest today. The Justice Department has reached a $144 million settlement with the families who sued over the Sutherland Springs Church massacre in Texas. A total of 26 people were killed. killed. A federal judge ruled that the U.S. was liable for damages because the gunman had an arrest record that wasn't uploaded to the federal gun buying database. Tyler Perry is setting his sights on BET. Paramount recently announced it's looking for a substantial partner in its majority share of the network. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Island from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
You have slowdown on the 5 southbound coming out of Glendale from Los Feliz Boulevard down to the 110. 5 south at the 110 connector. We had a minor wreck that is clearing off to the right. Slowing on the 5 northbound from the 710 to the Glendale Freeway. And the 101 southbound at the 110 connector. The ramp closed until 1:30 this afternoon.
If your company needs to spring into efficient hiring, then check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers extend their winning streak to 4 with a 2-point victory at Utah in overtime. First win for the Lakers in Utah since 2019. The Lakers and Clippers jump it up tonight at Crypto.com. First game for Russell Westbrook against the Lakers since they traded him in February. University of Iowa women's basketball star Caitlin Clark defended Angel Reese, saying the LSU star should not be criticized for her actions in Sunday's championship game. Reese is catching static for taunting Clark near the end of the game with the "you can't see me" hand gesture. 47-year-old Tiger Woods is dropping hints that he's nearing the end of a legendary career. Woods, who has dealt with numerous injuries, is prepping for his 25th Masters this week at Augusta. He's won the Masters 5 times. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tell me you're the boy and girl.
I'm young, gifted, and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Join Black Wealth Matters, an educational series as we explore and explain the Black College Athletes Playbook in a 5-part series starting April 6th. Dr. Davarian Baldwin, an award-winning scholar and author, seen in Time, CNBC, and more, helps us follow the college dollars. Coach John Mosley, fan favorite of Netflix's docuseries Last Chance U, covers the new world of the college athletes. David McGriff, one of the leaders in the NIL and sports world and owner of the McGriff Agency, explains NIL and the effects on black athletes. Keisha Richardson gives the challenges of raising a black athlete. And last, for the bonus series, we want to give athletes the tools to capitalize from their name and likeness with swimming bronze medalist from the 2021 Paralympics, Jamal Hill. There is no cost for the series. It's a live webinar. Questions are welcome. Register on KBLA1580.com.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job training starting at $19.10 per hour, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus is a great employer. Let Culver City Bus connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in the community, then you are invited to join the Culver City Bus team. Start your journey today by submitting an application at culvercity.org/jobs. For more info, visit culvercitybus.com or call live customer service operators at 310-253-6500. Again, 310-265-6500.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey!
I'm Tavis Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Our phone number 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. So glad to have you with us. In this hour, as we continue our conversation with our guest, Austin Channing Brown, New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. When she was on this program last, we were celebrating the release of that text and the success of it. She's here today, and we are celebrating her new text adapted for young readers. It's called I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers, Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. And before news, traffic, and sports, and before I get straight away into those books, certainly the new one, adapted for young readers, you were making a powerful point, Austin, about nativism and collectivism and certain people moving in a certain direction. Take it away.
Yeah. So people who are moving increasingly back towards nativism, right, who are like digging the hole, they're like, I am going to live and die here, right? Those are the people who say things that are so crazy that they end up in the news. You know what I mean? They get the news articles written about them. They're interviewed on Fox. They go viral on social media because it's so out there, right? And if you're not careful, you can begin to believe that that is the direction that most white people are moving in, or that all white people are moving in, right? But when you get to be as close to like diversity workshops or Black student unions or, you know, places where people already believe in collectivism, you can begin to see how many white people are actually interrogating, are moving forward, or maybe not all the way at allyship, right? But are beginning to move that direction. But nobody is going to give a microphone to somebody who is like, yeah, I just read Between the World and Me, and I think I get it. You know what I mean?
Hilarious. Hilarious. Oh, funny. Shout out to Ta-Nehisi Coates. I hear you. So let me ask. I've asked a few bizarre questions already this hour. Let me not stop now. Let me ask another question that is somewhat bizarre, but it is how my mind works, right? So one could look, Austin. One could look at. How about I put this? One could look at the present decay of our civilization. One could look at the devolution of our culture.
Yeah.
And one could be led to believe, to your point about the crazy folk on Fox News, one could be led to believe that the human race in late modernity is not full of fundamentally good people. We've heard that we've heard that refrain, time eternal, right? That people are basically good people. That people are fundamentally good on the inside. And I want to interrogate that for just a second. Again, looking at everything happening around us, are you still of the mind? Do you still believe that the human race in this moment is still made up primarily of fundamentally good people?
I think the human race is made up of people who get to decide if they're going to be good people. Right? Yeah. And I think that's a tall order. I mean, Tavis, it's hard to be a good person.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Yeah. You have to like interrogate your jealousies and your envious and your greed and your all these things. You have to like reframe your entire worldview. You have to actually think of yourself as part of a collective. You have to really care with other people who are marginalized and who experience other oppressions differently from you. And it's tiring, Tavis. I don't know if you've noticed.
Oh yeah. My mind went to two things while you were talking. I thought first of Socrates, that the unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes.
And then I thought of the biblical admonition that when I would do good, evil is always present.
It's right there with me.
So
on my heels.
Yeah,
it's
so
on my heels.
You're right. So I hear your point. You got to be intentional, right? You got to work at it.
You have to be intentional.
You're not just born. You're not just born a good person. You got to work at being a good person.
You have to decide that you want to be good, and that decision requires a lot of things. It requires courage. Yeah. It requires bravery. It requires, a lot of white people get hung up on whether or not they're liked. You know, they really want to be liked. So they want to like make waves, but not lose their job, right? They want to make waves, but they still want to go to the golf course. They want to make waves, but you know what I'm saying? And part of deciding that you're going to be a good person means that you're going to lose some of the benefits of being a bad one.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that. I was in conversation the other night, and I'll expand this out just a bit more broadly in dialogue with some friends the other night. And we were indicting not just the good white folk, but indicting the entire culture as one that cares first and foremost about being liked. That's true for everybody. And it plays out in the way social media works, right? I mean, your book is adapted for young readers. I'm still here, loving myself in a world not made for me. What drives too often these young folk over the edge? What causes them to commit suicide? It's that they don't feel liked. They're being bullied online, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So we live in a world now where the goal seems to be for everybody to be liked. That's not my goal. I want to be respected. But I'm not so much concerned, and maybe it's because I'm a certain age now, but maybe I'm just not concerned so much about being liked anymore as if I ever were. I just want to be respected. I want to be left alone, frankly, but but my goal is not to have you like me. But we live in a world, I think, where that's the goal for too many people. They want to be liked.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to let go of, right? So my little boy is 5, right? And every now and again, when he gets in trouble, he'll be like, "Mommy, you don't like me." Right? That baby is 5. Okay?
Exactly, 5.
And so, right? So there's something in us, right, that really wants to be liked, you know? And maybe that is actually connected to a desire to be in community, right? Maybe that is, right? Maybe it's our first measurement. Now, you know, I'm not a child psychologist, Tavis, but maybe it's one of our first measurements for deciding whether or not we're in the community. You know, but at some point you have to decide what kind of community you want to be in and participate in. And I would say that there are too many people who, after they are no longer 5, right, are not examining what is this community about? What is my purpose here? You know, and do I have a greater purpose than being liked? Or maybe just a different question, Tavis, because I think you are very well liked by people who share your same value system.
Yep.
Right? And so can you go find the people who will like you for the values that you hold, right? As opposed to just acquiescing who you are called to be for the sake of being liked where you are right now.
To the youth of your son being 5, we're talking. This book is addressed to an audience a little bit older than that. It is adapted for young readers. It's called, again, I'm Still Here, Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. And what we're talking about now takes me, at least as far as I see, takes us straight into a conversation about the importance of self-love and acceptance, regardless of race or ethnicity, which you talk about in the book. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, I grew up as a kid who attended predominantly white schools, right? And in my elementary school, I'm not going to lie to you, Tavis, I didn't have like the worst experience ever. I had attended that school for most of my life. I started when I was 6 months old, all the way through graduating to the 8th grade. So I knew all the teachers. I knew where all the bathrooms was. I used to sneak into the staff bathroom because they smelled good. You know, like I had a pretty great elementary school, right? But I also understood that elementary school wasn't made for me. I just decided to take it over, you know, to the degree that I could as a child, right? But I understood that, you know, when I was a kid on President's Day, there was all white men whose little silhouettes I was cutting out and putting on a piece of construction paper, right? I understood that in the little illustrated Bible I had, they were all white. I understood that when I went to the library, 9 times out of 10, I was not going to find a book that was either written by a Black person or even contained Black characters, right? So I understood that I was going to a place that wasn't made for me. But I also understood that was their fault, not mine. And I think that's the self-love that we are trying to cultivate in our kids of color and all marginalized kids, right? That the system not recognizing you is not your fault. It is the fault of the system but you deserve a sense of belonging. You deserve to be seen.
But that is a tall order. That's a tall order, and I want
It's tall
I
order.
want to interrogate it a bit further when we come forward here. This notion of loving oneself in a world not made for you. Again, the book is called I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers, but for not just young folk, for folk who are not so young, for those who, shall I say, are chronologically gifted. Loving yourself in a world not made for you still ain't easy. We'll talk about it when we come forward with our guest, Austin Channing Brown, who you're listening to right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
All I need is one mic.
For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley with a KBLA editorial. I've said it all along. Presumption of innocence, fundamental fairness, due process. Convicted now on 7 counts in his federal bribery case, L.A. City Councilman Mark Willie Thomas scarcely got 1, and his chances of getting the other 2 were slim to none, and Slim was out of town. Did you hear the jury forewoman's comments? The jurors were confused by the jury instructions, confused by the answers to the almost 12 questions they sent to the judge. She acknowledged that some jurors were not even paying attention. And she said the jury knew that the $100,000 contribution from MRT was legal, but the way the jury instructions were written made them feel like they had to find MRT guilty of wire fraud. Again, those are her words. So let me offer you just 3 questions that I want you to ponder. 1, why do you think the U.S. government spent millions of dollars of your money going after an alleged $100,000 bribe? 2, USC is in the news almost daily, it seems, for yet another violation of some law or the contestation of somebody else's humanity. But unlike all the other cases, they didn't get caught by some LA Times investigation. No, USC walked this particular case involving a powerful black leader into the U.S. Attorney's Office. Who made that decision, and how and why was it made? 3, while all the focus is on the indictment of Donald Trump, are you paying attention to all the other high-profile black elected officials that are being targeted across the nation by the Justice Department? Joe Biden's Justice Department. I'll let you marinate on that for a second. The judge in one case involving a high-profile black elected threw the charges out and told the government to kick rocks. It doesn't matter who's in charge. The hunting season for black folk is always open. I do not purport to know what's next for MRT. What I do know is that his legacy of love and service to our community is intact. What I do know is that God can turn your shipwreck into a submarine. As for all the rest of us, be vigilant, be sober, be circumspect. Just because you don't believe in conspiracy theories don't mean they ain't after you. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We, of course, welcome your comments.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth.
Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome. We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
Austin Channing Brown, I want to, watching my clock here, a couple things I want to just traverse with you before we lose you at the top of the hour. This notion of the media, you talk about this in the book. And by the way, the book is called, once again, in case you just tuned in, I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers, Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. Her original text, New York Times, USA Today bestselling book, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. That's the original if you want to grab that one. The one adapted for young readers, again, is called I'm Still Here, Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. A tall task for anybody, not just young readers, as I said a moment ago. But in the book, you talk about the media representation and how it impacts young people's self-image and their self-confidence. I guess the question is whether or not we're getting better or worse in media representation. Let me rephrase that. Whether we're getting better or worse with regard to young people of color seeing themselves and how they see themselves in media representation. You made the point. I had the same experience going into a PWI I was in PWI institutions my entire life, all through grade school, junior high, high school, college. I've only been to PWIs. And so I've had the experience of going to the library and looking for narratives that included me, looking for pictures of me, just not feeling like my story was captured in any of the text that I've ever read in my entire career in a classroom. So are we getting better about that? Worse? Stagnant? You tell me.
I'm not sure. I think we would have to ask young people, Tavis. I mean, I think I have a hard time answering this question because the word media has become so much larger than what it was when we were kids, you know? And so, like, I could maybe do an analysis of, like, TV, but are most kids just on TikTok? And if so, then who are they watching there? You know? Like, I'm genuinely not sure. But I would say that I think our systems, our school systems, are probably not faring much better than they were when we were kids. And that's because systems are so slow moving, right? They require that somebody put themselves out there in order to push back against the book bans, in order to say this is important and this is how I want to spend my budget, in order to say it's important that Black students have their own union, so forth and so forth, you know? Yeah.
So as a student in these PWIs, and by PWI we mean predominantly white institutions, I hate to use acronyms, but I explain them sometimes. PWIs, predominantly white institutions, which I went to and you went to. Tell me quickly then about, I have my own story, but this is your interview. Tell me about your journey toward understanding and embracing your own identity as a Black woman.
You know, my parents had to do a lot of work, and that's the whole truth, Tavis. You know, they are the ones who made sure that I knew Toni Morrison, that I knew Maya Angelou, that I knew Ntozake Shange. And honestly, Tavis, here's a thought that I remember having even as a kid. So because I went to a Christian PWI, they always sang these like white Christian contemporary songs. And every now and again, there would be one that I would recognize, but it didn't sound the same. And I would be like, ooh, I'm so sad that this is the only way you know how to sing Amazing Grace. That's just so... it's too bad, you know? And so, like, as Kirk Franklin came to the forefront and, you know, Fred Hammond went independent, you know, I was like, I felt bad for white people. I'm just going to come out and say, I felt bad for white people. I was like, man, you don't know that these gospel songs exist. Like, this would rock your world. And I think I sort of have that same attitude, right? That I love Black culture, and I realize that white people are missing out, right? Rather than me feeling like I need to become like them in order to matter.
Yeah. Ricky Smiley, the comedian, no relation, although he tells folk we're first cousins. He ain't. He lying. We really ain't first cousins, but I love Ricky Smiley. But Ricky had a stand-up some years ago. Ricky plays piano. Ricky Smiley, if you don't know, I literally played piano and organ in churches. I think still does. On Sundays, he still plays for his church. He's a great pianist. And he did a stand-up where he had the piano on stage, and he would literally sing. He would sing the song the way Black folks sing the song, and then sing it the way white folks sing the song, and it was hilarious. I won't even try to go there, but it was. If you ever see that Ricky Smiley special, you'll die. Our remaining moments with Austin Channing Brown when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. K-O! And we don't black down.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio congratulates Sal's Gumbo Shack for this Women's History Month. Surviving the pandemic and social unrest, Sal's Gumbo Shack continued to hold the community up with great food to all that came through the doors. Are you ready for the best gumbo in town? The best po' boy you've had? Sal's Gumbo Shack. We bring the bayou to you with real authentic soul food, Mama and Granny's recipes made with real butter, real love, real everything. Also introducing a healthy option from our jackfruit selection. And there's more. Mouth-watering desserts, peach cobbler, banana pudding, red and blue velvet cake, 7-Up pound cake, homemade with lots of love. To order, call 562-423-2113. That's 562-423-2113. Sal's is also providing training and employment to those serious about a career in the food industry and the opportunity to perhaps own your own Sal's Gumbo Shack one day. Visit salsgumboshack.com or stop by either locations, Bixby Knolls or Long Beach Boulevard. Sal's Gumbo Shack.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a whole lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. Today I spoke with Tatiana, a community manager for JP Morgan Chase.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Tatiana Roberts. I am a community manager for JP Morgan Chase. I have to honestly say that this has been the most fulfilling position that I've ever had, where I get to give back to the community because I saw my mom's struggles. That's really what fuels what I do to make sure that that the community has all the access to the resources that my mother didn't have.
So for the mother who's in business, what are 3 quick tips you can give to ensure that they're on the right path to accessing financial support from a bank like Chase?
Say number 1, just make sure that you're checking your credit on a consistent basis and taking action to either fix your credit, maintain your credit, or rebuild your credit. The second thing would be budget. I know that B word is kind of like ugly for, right? A lot of people don't like that B word, but it has to be done. We need to tell our money where to go. The last thing is to build a network of supporters that are going to lift you up.
The community building here in Crenshaw is that network. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Just 2 minutes left in conversation here with our guest, Austin Channing Brown. Again, 2 books. The first one that came out did quite well. New York Times bestseller, USA Today bestseller. Can't do much better than that. It's called I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. And now, the new one just out for young readers. It's called I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers. Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. In the 2 minutes I have left here, minute and a half, I guess, 90 seconds. I want to close on this note, and I don't even want to color the question much more than this, but I thought I would close, Austin, by asking you to say a word about resilience. Resilience.
This discussion around resilience, I think, like many things, that was intended, right, to be something that helped kids of color, has become a thing that that doesn't. That now there is an expectation of resilience as opposed to recognizing the resilience that has already taken place and figuring out how we can make kids of color more comfortable. Like, can we create environments where our kids don't have to be resilient? Can we create environments where they just feel seen, where they feel a sense of belonging, where they do not have to be resilient against a system? And the truth is, we're still building that system. And so we want kids of color to join that fight, but also still be kids. We still want them twerking in the mirror, Tavis. We still want them going to the movies. We still want them roller skating. We want our kids to be kids. And I hope this book just affirms the stories that are unfolding in our kids' lives right now.
The book is called I'm Still Here, adapted for young readers, Loving Myself in a World Not Made for Me. The book released yesterday, April 4th, 55th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. So
yes.
Quite a day to release a book that helps people learn how to love themselves in a world not made for them. If that ain't the legacy of King, nothing is. Austin Channing Brown, good to have you on. All the best to you. We'll do it again somewhere down the road.
Tavis, it's always a joy to talk to you.
Likewise. Have a good rest of the day. 1 more hour to go. Hour 3 of Tavis Smiley when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A major storm is threatening more than 62 million Americans across the central U.S. It comes after at least 5 tornadoes were reported Tuesday as the storm system hammered Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, and Missouri. Multiple deaths have been reported in Missouri's Bollinger County, that's just south of St. Louis. African-American media mogul Tyler Perry is setting his sights on BET. Paramount recently announced it's looking for a substantial partner in its majority share of the network. Speaking with Entertainment Tonight, Perry said he's very, very interested and excited about the chance for the network to be black-owned again.
We have a new rec working now on the